Alrighty, we should be live. Nathan Burnett, episode 46. First things first, we have not recorded an episode in about 2 weeks ish. That's obviously because of homework and finals and all that. Finals are actually starting to wrap up here pretty quick, so I should be able to record a little bit more. Unfortunately, by the time finals are over, a lot of the playoffs will already be done, but we'll definitely try and start uploading some more. I know it's been a little bit spotty, but school has to come first, so it is what it is. But to make up for me being gone for a while, this should be a pretty long episode. It originally was going to be a lot longer and a lot more eventful because I was originally going to have CJ Hoop Talks here recording with me, but he unfortunately couldn't make it because he as well is dealing with a lot of finals and schoolwork. So but we'll go ahead and get into it, guys. This should be a pretty fun episode. We have a lot to talk about because, again, we haven't recorded in a while, and the playoffs are going on. So this should be a fun episode. And I'm trying to figure out how to upload video onto Spotify. So if I can do that, I'll definitely start doing that. That way the Spotify viewers can finally have full video just like YouTube, and it won't be audio only, so y'all can keep up with all of the inside jokes and other stuff that I reference on video. So also, to get it out of the way real quick, if y'all are wondering what this like swarm is behind me, these are both to and from my girlfriend, which feels really cool to say on camera. And she likes to mess with me on stream, so I'm sure she'll be in the chat here eventually to mess with me probably. So I'm just going to point that out now. But let's go ahead and get into the episode, why don't we? So, again, we were originally going to have CJ Hoop Talks on here, so some of these I'm going to skip through because I wanted to get his viewpoint on them, but unfortunately he isn't here. So the NBA did establish a minimum games rule for a lot of their awards, which is really interesting. Again, I wanted to get sort of CJ's viewpoint on this, but because mine is very simple. It's a decent rule change. It will have some major effects that come of it because there are things like injuries and other things that obviously could affect this. You know, this rule was obviously made for load management and everything, but there are other things besides load management that affect how long a player plays for. I saw a lot of people joking that because of this, Zion will never win an MVP. You know, Kawhi may not get another MVP. A lot of these players that have known to be injured for a while and are decent players when they play are never going to get awards now because, you know, they're either always injured or they're not playing or anything like that. So I think it's a good rule to have. There may be some changes down the line that sort of affect, like there may be some modifications to it, like it's a decent rule, but maybe they affect what the actual minimum games is, and sort of fine-tune it as the years go on. But I like the rule change. Again, it just may be something that where the NBA has to fine-tune and find the good balance of what that number of minimum games should be. But I think it is a good rule change, and it does affect load management. And we sort of talked about load management in a few other episodes. There was a lot of criticism that the Spurs were the one that started it, and I can't exactly deny that. And load management is inherently sort of part of the game and something that just comes with sports and everything else. But there also gets to a point where it gets to be too much, which I think is this point, and that's why the NBA is trying to address it. Because you can't just have, you know, your third strings or your second strings playing for 2 weeks straight, and then everybody that bought a ticket is disappointed, you know. But once again, a lot of these things I was going to run through with CJ, so I'll just give my brief rundown. So one of the things I have on here is the awards that everybody has won. So I actually looked down at my phone a little while ago because I got a notification that the MVP is going to be announced on May 2nd. So everything except for the MVP has... See, there's my girlfriend once again messing around in the chat. But it's going to be exciting to see who wins MVP. I think regardless of who wins it, there are going to be some people disappointed or some people happy. And with them announcing it in May, it is sort of weird. They do tend to announce MVP way later after regular season, but with the high contenders up there, like Embiid with the 76ers and Jokic with the Nuggets, I think it's interesting because whether people are intentionally doing it or not, I feel like there's going to be some bias in there based on how far each team makes it in the playoffs or how well they do in the playoffs. Again, it could be conscious or not, but I think that those are the two big names that are really up there for MVP. Giannis as well, but Giannis is no longer in the playoffs anymore. And so, MVP is obviously based off of regular season. And I think that with them doing it further into the playoffs, almost in the second round, oh, my girlfriend once again is joking in the chat, but I would say I'm interested to see how playoffs are going to affect this. I don't know. We'll see. If I had to choose an MVP right now, I know I'm biased in saying it, and I know he just got knocked out of the playoffs, but I really like Giannis as the MVP. But obviously Embiid and Jokic are up there. I said a while back that Luka should really get it here soon, but now with the addition of Kyrie and how well their team is doing, I don't know how soon Luka is going to get it with all of the other variables that are in there. Jokic, I got to be honest, I would rather Embiid win it than Jokic because Embiid has been top 2 for the past 3 years. So Embiid should really get it because he's been, again, he's barely missed it the last few years. And Jokic's already won 2, so I know there's this big media push for him to win a third one. And yes, you could make the argument that he deserves it, and he is the MVP, so it makes sense for him to win a third one. But at this point, I'm just kind of sick of it. It's I want somebody else to get MVP, and I feel again Embiid deserves it for being number 2 for the past couple years. So so that's it for MVP for me. Again, I would have liked to have had somebody to go back and forth on this with, but I think that Embiid should get it over Jokic. That's just my opinion. So Rookie of the Year is Paolo Banchero. I don't really think that there was any question about this. Going into the season, or I shouldn't even really say going into the season, I should say after the draft, I really wanted Chet to win it. I was hugely high on Chet and everything like that. And I was huge on Chet, and I was expecting him to do really well, but obviously he got injured. We didn't see much out of him, and Banchero is putting on one of the, or I guess now that the season's over, did put on one of the best rookie performances we've seen in a while. There were people that were comparing him to Jordan and all these other statistics. So I don't really think it's much of a question that he won Rookie of the Year. I would have liked to have seen what Chet could have done, but it just is what it is. But Banchero's ability to really elevate the Magic is phenomenal. And I made a video when he was first drafted saying, like, let's wait and see how he works out. But I think he's worked out great. Again, in that video, I talked about how Banchero is a very on-ball person, while the rest of the team is very off-ball, so their system works very well. And I think we could very easily start to see the Magic start to be in the conversation again, possibly make the play in. I don't know about the playoffs yet, but possibly the 10th, 9th seed here pretty soon. And I think Banchero has really adapted to the NBA level of play. And that was something I was worried about him for a while with. I was worried about how he's going to transition from college basketball to the NBA because, again, he is a very on-ball person, and he didn't seem like he could do that much off of the ball or without the ball in his hands. And so I was wondering how he was going to sort of adjust to a faster pace of NBA, a more aggressive basketball in the NBA, and again, just sort of adjust to taking it to the next level. But he's done phenomenally, and he seems like he's a real natural at it, and he adjusted to the NBA, and he's been going crazy, and he's been doing very well. So that's really all I have for that. DeAaron Fox, Clutch Player of the Year. So this isn't me hating on DeAaron Fox or the Kings because I've praised them the entire season, and I think they're amazing. But DeAaron Fox to be the first person to get Clutch Player of the Year, it kind of put me off a little bit. I love DeAaron Fox. I love the Kings. But there were so many memes that were made when this award came out that, like, it was Damian Lillard's award. All the awards got named after a player and everything like that. And the clutch player really should have been the first person to win the Clutch Player of the Year. In my opinion, should have been Damian Lillard, because that is what Damian Lillard is known for. He's known for Dame time, everything like that. So I love De'Aaron Fox. I love the Kings. For him to win the very first Clutch Player of the Year, I don't know about that. I would have much rather it been Damian Lillard. And it's... I don't know how else to really put that. I mean, again, this is what Damian Lillard is known for. This is his entire, this is his entire brand, his entire reputation is Dame time, is the clutch, everything like that. And he wasn't the first Clutch Player of the Year. So it sort of struck me as off. Like, I can't really lie there. Lauri Markkanen won Most Improved Player, so I'm actually going to pull up everybody else that was in the ladder real quick so we can talk about it a little bit more, because I want to compare the other people that were up for it. So it's SGA and Jalen Brunson. So let me go to Basketball Reference here real quick, and we will talk about it. So Lauri Markkanen, it looks like last season, was averaging 28 points, 0 blocks, 0 steals, 3 assists, 10 rebounds, and so on. His 3-point was 33. His field goal was 43. Jalen Brunson was averaging 20 points. He was averaging 4 steals, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 29 field goal, 1.253, And then SGA was averaging 39, 1 block, 1 steal, 4 assists, 9 rebounds, 0 from 3, and 5 from field goal. So just looking at those stats and also the eye test too, because I've been catching a lot of Lauri Markkanen and SGA. Lauri Markkanen definitely deserves this. There's been a lot of talk about him improving. He's dropped a lot of big point games. With him dropping a lot of big point games. I was just reading out the last 5 games. I didn't even go to their stats per game. I'm dumb. Sorry about that. Let's go to... But yeah, last 5 games, which for Lauri Markkanen, which is the point I was trying to make, 23, 25, 40, 28, 38. I was going to get into him making 40-point games, but there you go. That's freaking the last 5 games. So let's go into per game now, so I don't look like such an idiot. So SGA per game last season was 24 points, 0.8 blocks, 1.3 steals, 5.9 assists, 0.3 3-point, and 0.45 field goal. Jalen Brunson was 24 points last season, 0.8 blocks, 1.3 steals, 5.9 assists, 5 rebounds, 3... Oh, what? I clicked on the Jalen Brunson tab and I went back to SGA. I was about to say these are like the exact same stats as SGA, but that's because it accidentally switched to the other tab. 16.3 points, 0 blocks, 0.8 steals, 4.8 assists, 3.9 rebound, 0.37 3-point, and 0.5 field goal for Jalen Brunson last season. Lauri Markkanen, we got 14 points, 0.5 blocks, 0.7 steals, 1.3 assists, 5.7 rebounds, 0.35 3-point, and 0.45 field goal. So now we'll get into their current stats. So for Lauri Markkanen, we have 25.6 points per game. So that's a point jump of just shy of 11. Just shy of 11. So 10.8. And then blocks went up 0.1. Assist went up 0.6. Steals are the only category to have dropping by only 0.1. And his total rebounds went up by 2.9. His 3-point went up a couple of points, but a couple of points with 3-point percentage is huge. So it went up from 0.35 to 0.39, which is pretty good. And then his field goal percentage went up from 0.44 to 0.49. So he's seen a massive improvement. And just looking at the minutes here, he's getting a little bit more minutes per game, which has a bit to do with his increased stats. But I think the Jazz are utilizing him a lot better. Again, I've been seeing headlines about Lauri Markkanen all season, and he's been dropping 40 points pretty consistently. So he's been doing amazing for the Jazz, and they just barely missed the playoffs this season, even after trading Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. So he's been doing really well. And again, every single category has gone up except for his steals. And his steals didn't even really drop at all. They stayed almost consistent. So Lauri Markkanen has really been going off this season. So he's been doing a lot for the Jazz, and the their offense is really powerful with him. Again, even after trading Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, their offense is pretty sharp with him, and they just barely missed the playoffs. So with Jalen Brunson, he went from 16.3 to 24 points per game, so just barely under 8 points increase. His blocks went up from 0 to 0.2. His steals went up 1 point. His assists went up 1.4 points. His rebounds went down, and his 3-point percentage went up pretty well, and then his field goal percentage actually dropped. So he's getting about 3 more minutes a game. So to score 8 more points a game with only 3 more minutes is pretty good. And Jalen Brunson has been doing incredible for the Knicks. He's everybody was joking about him being overpaid and why the Knicks were traded for him and everything like that to get him from the Mavericks. But he's really carrying them. He carried them to the playoffs, and he's doing pretty decent in the playoffs now that the Knicks have gone forward. But it's still not as big of a jump as Lauri Markkanen, because again, Lauri Markkanen had over a 10-point jump in points per game, and also didn't really have any categories go down. Jalen Brunson only had 8-point increase and had a few other categories go down as well. So that's not to dismiss all the achievements that Jalen Brunson has accomplished and how far he's come. But if we're having to pick a winner compared to Lauri Markkanen is still the winner. So SGA, he went from 24.5 to 31.4 points per game. So about a 7-point increase. He went from 0.8 blocks to 1 block. He went up in steals by 0.3. He dropped in assists, dropped in rebounds, and his field goal or his 3-point went up by 0.045, and his field goal went up from 0.45 to 0.51. So once again, very similar to what I said with Jalen Brunson. SGA has been really carrying the OKC Thunder. The OKC Thunder have been doing a lot better the last couple seasons, and SGA and Josh Giddey have a lot to do with that. And once we get Chet Holmgren back, I think it'll be even better. But again, it's still not as big of a jump as Lauri Markkanen, but that's not to dismiss his impact on OKC and how he's sort of helped carry them a little bit. But he's doing great work in OKC. The only problem is, again, it's only a 7-point jump in points, and he dropped in some other categories. So, again, if we're having to compare the two side by side, it goes to Lauri Markkanen. However, it should not be dismissed that, again, OKC and the Knicks have been doing a lot better this season, and it's because of those two players and everything that they've achieved, because they've done so much this season, and it really should not go unnoticed. But Lauri Markkanen is really the clear winner here after we compare everything side by side like that. So now we'll get into Coach of the Year. Coach of the Year should really be no question whatsoever. Before the Kings started doing super crazy, I saw some people talking about the Grizzlies coach being in the conversation there, which we'll get into a little bit later. But Mike Brown, I mean, he was unanimous Coach of the Year because... Oh, my camera's starting to glitch out a little bit there. Hopefully it doesn't crash on me or anything weird. But Mike Brown winning Coach of the Year, again, it was pretty unanimous, or it was unanimous. It wasn't pretty much unanimous. They said it was unanimous, and I mean, there's good reason for that. Again, it's without question. Without question, he's Coach of the Year. To go from a 16-year playoff drought to possibly beating the quote-unquote dynasty of the Warriors in the playoffs and go to the second round is just such a massive jump. And not only, again, this isn't like, oh, we ended the 16-year playoff drought and we're just barely in the playoffs or anything like that. Like, oh, we made the play in or anything. No, he went from a 16-year playoff drought to the second seed, if I recall, and again is doing a Game 7 tomorrow against the Warriors, which we'll get into. It's just such a massive, like, jump in the graph of success for the Kings, and I did a whole video on him because he is to be credited with the Kings' success and how well they've been doing. You know, everybody's going to talk about DeAaron Fox and, you know, how DeAaron Fox has been going crazy again, him winning Clutch Player of the Year. But the Kings' success really comes down to Mike Brown. And, I mean, it's unanimous. There's no question about it. He took them to the playoffs, and he's continuing to have them succeed in the playoffs based on his coaching ability. And again, if you want more of my thoughts on that, I did a whole video about him, which I'll try and timestamp here, but it's just incredible. The next one is JJJ, Jaren Jackson Jr., won Defensive Player of the Year. He's been having pretty good defense, so I don't have too much issues with that. And then Malcolm Brogdon winning Sixth Man of the Year. I don't have too much to say on Triple J, and I don't have too much to say on Malcolm Brogdon, so I'll sort of leave that where it's at. So that's all I have for the awards, so we can go ahead and start getting into the actual playoffs now, especially because we're already 30 minutes in. So probably the biggest shock of the playoffs, obviously, is the Bucks losing to the Miami Heat. So that was a massive blow. There's a lot that went into that, and I've been talking, you know, so many of my friends that know I'm Bucks fans, including my roommate messing with me, you know, they all ask me, like, what happened, you know, like how could y'all lose? Y'all were supposed to be the best, like, what happened, you know, trying to mess with me. But I mean, I'm about to go into what happened. So I originally was going to go into this, and Scooter Magruder just uploaded a video with the same sentiment. I originally was going to talk a lot about the coaching decisions and other things that were made, but unfortunately, if y'all have not seen it already, Budenholzer's brother passed away during these playoffs, and so it was very difficult for him to coach, I would imagine, and a lot of this playoff failure can be equated to coaching, which I'm going to get into. But with all that said, I don't, you know, like, I'm not a huge religious person, so I don't want to say prayers go out to him, but I mean, that's all I can say is, like, my sentiment goes out to him. I have a brother myself, so I mean, I can imagine you're not going to be in the right headspace after something like that happens. So as much as I'm about to get into some of the failures with the coaching that happened during this playoff series, I think if anything like that were to happen to any of us, we would have made similar mistakes, because we would not have had our head in the game either. And it's very understandable that he was focused on other things. You know, there's things more important than sports, obviously, and family obviously is one of them. So yeah, it's real emotional, and I don't know how else to really summarize it other than my condolences go out to him. I hope him and his family are doing okay. And know that from a Bucks fan, I don't want him to get fired based off of his past coaching decisions. because I know everybody messes with him about it, but again, put yourself in his situation. Um, you know, I'm sorry on behalf of all Bucks fans or other fans saying that he needs to be sent down the river and everything, because again, it's not right to do that whenever it's not right to say that or treat it like that whenever he was going through his own personal issues. So, but with that being said, we're gonna get into some of the stuff that went wrong during that playoff series. So, again, a big part of it was coaching. I know a lot of people have pointed out, and I noticed it myself, that there was no timeout called on the last possession of game 5. So it was interesting to say the least. I think it had everybody kind of scratching their heads, but obviously now we sort of understand it a little bit better. But pushing the ball up further, especially with Giannis in the game, definitely could have helped things. And there were a lot of other times that we could have called timeouts. And we had similar issues last year. Last year, during the playoffs, during the Celtics, we didn't call timeouts at the correct time either. And a lot of these problems that I'm about to get into, we had last year during the Celtics. So, obviously, again, timeouts could have been called at better times, but we weren't really focused on that at that moment. And the sun is starting to go down, so my lighting is a bit off now. But another big thing, obviously, Giannis was hurt the first 2 games, so it's rough. It's hard to win a series when your main person is injured for half of the series. I mean, if Embiid was injured the first 2 games, the 76ers could have struggled. If Jokic was injured for the first 2 games, the Nuggets would have struggled, which the 76ers, the Embiid is actually out for game 1 of the Celtics, so that could be interesting and further prove my point. But unfortunately, injuries are part of the game. It sort of is what it is. But, man, you always question with injuries, how things would have gone if it was the other way. I saw a lot of people debating about when Giannis got injured, the parallels of Kyrie being injured on the Nets and things like that, but it's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. You just got to deal with it and keep moving. We can Giannis's speech I'll get into after I'm done talking about the Bucks, but Jrue Holiday was really struggling, and I mean on both ends of the floor. For me, I have always commended Jrue Holiday on his defense. I've always said he's a phenomenal defensive player. I think that's one of his biggest strengths, and I think that's one thing that we really succeeded with against the Suns in 2021. And unfortunately, we didn't see that in this series. He was struggling a lot defensively, and the Heat just simply started outscoring us because our defense was not keeping up with them. On top of that, Jrue Holiday was struggling on the opposite end of the floor as well, where he just wasn't shooting right. He was going, I think it was 3 for 19 or something like that. He was just shooting crazy bad, and I think one reason for that is the whole team universally was taking bad shot selection. We were just kind of throwing the ball wherever. And I think one reason for that is that we utilized Giannis a whole lot. And obviously teams are going to see through that we use Giannis. So they're going to try and create a defense around, based on Giannis. And so we started to compensate for that. We started to take more shots beyond the arc. We sort of tried to stay out of the paint a little bit more. but I think we went too far and started to overcompensate. And so because of that, we started just sort of chucking everything from behind the 3-point line, and it did not work out in our favor. And so we just had really bad shot selection, bad shot percentages because we just kept throwing it up there, and that basically summarizes everything. And another huge problem, and again, this was brought up last year whenever I talked about the Bucks versus the Celtics, is we played very passive. We weren't aggressive, we were sort of slow and lazy when we were in that game 5, and it seemed like we accepted defeat even before the game was over. It's possible that was because the Bucks knew about maybe Mike's brother or something. It's possible that could have affected it, where they were just sort of not in the game, much like the coach. But it seemed that we just didn't really want it, and the Heat wanted it, and the Heat played a lot more aggressive, a lot faster than we did, and we didn't keep up. And it was the same thing with the Celtics in Game 7 last year, where towards the end of Game 7, it seemed we sort of gave up way too early, and we just sort of sat back and took it, and we just sort of started accepting defeat and didn't really play towards the end, and we didn't push through. And that's very disappointing. When we have like so many great players, it would have been great to put a little bit more effort in and maybe see things change. But the Heat, to commend them, I just talked about all the problems with the Bucks, but problems with the Bucks doesn't exactly problems for one team doesn't exactly equate to everything. Goodness of one team can outshine the badness of another team, and the Heat had really good shot selection, and there isn't much else to be said there. The Heat, even with our bad defense, shot the ball really, really well. And I'm gonna open these blinds real quick so that my lighting's a little bit better. There we go. But the Heat just had a really good shot percentage, and it's as simple as that. We just didn't defend well. We did not play well for a lot of that series, but especially in Game 4. And again, everybody asked me what happened, and that's the best way I can summarize everything that happened. We didn't play to the end. We didn't play aggressive. Our defense was bad. Our offense was bad. Giannis was injured. There were bad coaching decisions, just all around a lot of different things. But next we'll get into the Cavaliers and the Knicks. So to be honest, I'm surprised that the Cavaliers lost, because I've backed them for a lot of the season, and last season and the season before as well, because I think there really are there's something special about them, and I expected them to go a lot further, to be honest. I expected them to at least go 6 games deep into the second round, but they ended up getting knocked out by the Knicks again, due a lot to Jalen Brunson, which we talked about a little bit earlier. But the Cavs, to me, are a really great team. They're diverse in how they play. They have a really good core. They have good defenders. They have good tall players. They have good small players. And I've made this comparison before, and some people have really agreed with it, and some people haven't. But it reminds me of the 2014 Spurs. And that's why I think one of these days the Cavaliers can get another championship without LeBron. Because they have Jared Allen, they have Evan Mobley, they have Donovan Mitchell. I think we can start seeing them go far, but it just didn't fall their way, unfortunately. But I think they They're playing really good basketball. They're playing really good team ball, which again is a huge thing. I talk all the time about team chemistry and teamwork, and uh, I'm pretty sure they're number one in defense, or they were number one in defense for a while. And again, that just all goes back to like 2014 Spurs. Like 2014 Spurs has always been known for teamwork and family, and they were a huge defense heavy team as well. So it just sort of gives me that vibe of them, and I'm surprised that the Cavs didn't go further because I really think with all that put together, they would have done really as well as some of the weaknesses that the Knicks have. So even as well as Jalen Brunson is doing, they're sort of utilizing him like 90% of the time. Uh, like a lot of the Knicks offense is solely Jalen Brunson. So it was interesting to see that the Cavs, for whatever reason, weren't able to stop that. They play a lot of ISO, and they don't have many assists with Jalen Brunson. So I talk a lot about teams not being that diverse, and teams not like uh, spreading out, like they're spreading the ball around and dividing up better who gets shots. But the Knicks mainly relied on Jalen Brunson, and somehow it worked out for them. So I'm not sure who the Knicks play next. I'll check real quick. I'm pretty sure it's the Heat. If it is, then to be honest, I gotta go for the Heat on that one, just based on how the Heat beat the Bucks, and again how the Knicks have really relied far too much on Jalen Brunson. But the 76ers swept. There isn't really much else to say about that. The Nets trade away a lot of their good players. I wasn't surprised that the Knicks got swept, but I think next year they can do a lot better. Obviously, I talked about this at the trade deadline. The Knicks did trade away Kyrie and KD, so they need a little bit to get adjusted and everything like that. But I do think they still have pretty decent players on the roster. So I just think that the Nets were not adjusted yet to having no KD and Kyrie, because it was so close to the playoffs and so late in the season, and they had been playing with KD and Kyrie for like the past 2 years. But I think next year we can start seeing them succeed again, because I really do think they have decent players. They just have to figure it out with KD and Kyrie. So we'll see what happens. But the Celtics versus Hawks, I don't have much else to say about this other than I'm surprised that it took 6 games. I thought the Celtics could have swept them. I thought the Celtics could have done it in at least 5 games. I'm surprised it went to 6 games. I thought the Celtics had the Hawks easy, because if the Bucks were to get knocked out, which they did, my next bet was going to be the 76ers or the Celtics. So I thought the Celtics were just going to absolutely steamroll through the Hawks and just blow through them. But the Hawks managed to get 2 games in, so that's interesting. But now the Hawks are gone, and I can make fun of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray, which makes me happy. So the Suns-Clippers, there was a lot of injuries on the Clippers, which seems to always happen with the Clippers. I put in my notes here that the Clippers have the same problems that the Nets did, which is when the team is all playing together, they are an absolute powerhouse and they are crazy. The only problem is that never happens. Kawhi and Paul George are almost never playing together, just like Harden, Kyrie, and KD almost never played together. But whenever they do, the Nets and the Clippers both went crazy. So it's just a matter of inconsistency and injuries and everything like that. However, the Clippers still did do pretty well. If I recall, let me pull it up. Um, the Okay, it was 5 games. I'm glad I looked it back up. I thought it was 6 games, but even with you probably hear fucking Mustang or whatever outside. Um, Even with injuries and it being only a 5 game series, they did pretty decent. Aside from game 2, every game was within 10 points. And game 4 being 12 points as well. But uh, it the Clippers seemed to hold their own, which was really interesting. Um, and again, if the Clippers just had more, I could easily see the Suns taking that, because there were a lot of people talking about even 3 games in. The 3 games in, it was 2-1. There were a lot of people saying that the Clippers could still win it, and I saw that as well. Like they, the Clippers were really holding their own, which was interesting. It's a 4 seed and a 5 seed, so it really could go either way. But the Suns ended up taking it. But regardless, Russell Westbrook did really, really well, which I could spend a whole 20 minutes on its own probably. But Russell Westbrook, he's getting a lot more space, which is great. I don't feel like the Lakers utilized him as well as they could because of AD and LeBron. But Westbrook is able to go through the paint a lot more, so he can rely on his strengths rather than his weaknesses a lot more, which is great. And I think that's really boosted his confidence. And when Russell Westbrook is confident, he goes off. So it's cool to see that he's confident. And I think a big part of that as well, I quoted Rusty Buckets here because I actually made the notes for this a week ago, but I was watching through some of his videos today, and we actually brought up very similar points. So shout out to him. Game recognized game. And I have a bot in my chat, so that's always fun. Go away, please. What was I talking about? I'm sorry. Yes, Rusty Buckets. I put a quote here. He said the toxicity of the Lakers, and I wholeheartedly agree. I had a very controversial video that went out, and I knew it was going to be controversial because of what the topic was, and that was that being a Laker and sometimes playing with LeBron can make you worse, because there's a lot of stigma around it and everything like that. There's a lot of hostility from the fans if you don't do well, and there's a large expectation when playing in LA for the Lakers and also playing with LeBron. And so anytime Russell Westbrook did bad, it only further decreased his confidence. The media went crazy. And again, confidence is really key with Russell Westbrook. So it had a big impact. But now that he's playing on the Clippers fans are cheering him on a lot more. And that's really boosting his confidence and leading him to score a lot better. So, again, I could spend a lot more time on Russell Westbrook, but that sort of summarizes it. With the Kings Warriors, they play tomorrow, so hopefully this is up by then. But, I mean, all I can say is light the motherfucking beam. I mean, I've never been a Warriors fan. I've been backing the Kings all season. I love an underdog story. I really do love an underdog story. That's why I had SDSU all the way into the Final Four in March Madness. I love seeing the Kings do well. I mean, light the beam. I'm excited to see if they win tomorrow, and I really hope that they do. So, but with that being said, they are playing at home tomorrow, and it seems that the Kings seem to do really well at home, and the Warriors, of course, always do pretty bad on the road. So that could very heavily go into the Kings' favor and affect that Game 7, because the Warriors have this whole season have not done well on the road, and that's caught up to them because had the Warriors had a better season on the road, then they might have had a home game advantage for this game 7 and also not have to deal with losing on the road. So everything comes full circle for the Warriors and their away games. But um, again, I'll shout out Rusty Buckets. He has a video talking about the Warriors' success with Steph Curry and without Steph Curry. Um, the Warriors do a lot worse when Steph Curry is not there, obviously, by a long shot. So, but they also do better when Draymond is not there either. So Draymond was not in the starting lineup for one of the games. I don't remember which one. I think game 3, or he was suspended game 3, I believe, and he wasn't in the starting lineup game 4, something like that. But whenever he wasn't in the starting lineup, they actually did really, really well. And when he was suspended, they did really, really well, which is interesting. And the same thing can also be said for Sabonis, which is interesting. The whole reason he was suspended is because of what he did to Sabonis. And Sabonis, he was out a lot more, and the Kings seemed to actually do a lot better when Sabonis was off the floor. And again, we'll just have to see what happens in Game 7. If you want my whole opinion on Draymond and Sabonis, Sabonis was completely in the right. Draymond was completely in the wrong. Fight about it. I don't get how people defend Draymond. I absolutely fucking hate Draymond because of shit like that. I don't get how people can defend Draymond or say, like, oh, Sabonis grabbed his leg and all that shit, because that's complete bullshit. And the Warriors fans, again, have a history of trying to injure players, especially Draymond. Draymond is a very high-tempered person, a very aggressive person, and he has a history of shit like this, so I don't know how you can defend him. Again, earlier this season, he punched his own teammate. I saw a meme going around that I thought was really funny, but it said something like Draymond commits felony assault on another player, and then it said Warriors fans, oh, he was just a little angry, that's all, or something like that. Like, they always defend Draymond, man, no matter what he does. He could commit freaking first-degree murder on a player, and the Warriors fans would still fucking defend him, and I don't understand. Like, I hate Draymond so much, and he, like, pisses me off. But anyway, we'll start going faster through these rundowns to sort of wrap it up a little bit. But there's Lakers Grizzlies, and once again my lighting is getting a bit bad because the sun's starting to go down. But Lakers Grizzlies, of course, there's a bunch of memes going around with Ja saying I'm fine in the West. Obviously, that back then that actually wasn't that bad of a take because he still was the best player, or the best team in the league at that point. Not best team in the league. What am I trying to say? Best team in the conference, the Western Conference at that time. But there was a lot of trades made. The West got very crazy. Again, even at the beginning of the season, the West was very contested and tied for standings a lot of the time, and teams were sort of going back and forth, and that's what has made this series, this playoff so interesting. Is that any team can win at this point? Because again, the Heat beat the Bucks, the Lakers beat the Grizzlies. The Kings could beat the Warriors. It's anybody's game, really. And yeah, the West and the East both have been very competitive. So this is going to be a very competitive playoffs. With that being said, I honestly was hoping the Lakers would lose because I hate when people talk about, like, oh, LeBron's the GOAT, LeBron can carry a team or whatever, and all that. But even with as much as I hate it, there is something to be said about playoffs LeBron and playoffs Lakers and how they can, are different in the playoffs versus regular season. And again, they were a 7th seed, and now they're going into the second round, which is interesting. So um, it really goes to show how different the Lakers are in the playoffs versus the regular season. But I'm not going to lie, I've always hated the Lakers, so I'm kind of hoping they lose in the second round. But they're going to be playing the Kings most likely. So I don't know how a Kings Lakers matchup will go, but I could see the Lakers winning it as much as I don't want them to. Again, I despise the Lakers, and I despise LeBron as well. But as much as I don't like him, I have to give credit where credit is due. And LeBron and the Lakers are different when playoff time comes, and they're really carrying. So with the Grizzlies, I know there's a big argument with are they good without Ja Morant? And I don't think this has really anything to do with Ja Morant. I think it has to do with the coaching and the bench. Again, before the Kings went on their crazy run, and I'll turn my light on because again it's getting. So there's this big argument that the Grizzlies are better without Ja Morant, which I think is simply just not true. Um, I think this is just something that we can commend the coach on. Because again, before the Kings went on their crazy success, I saw a lot of like early season predictions for awards and other things saying that the coach of the Grizzlies was going to win Coach of the Year. And had the Kings not done so successful and it be a unanimous decision for Mike Brown, I could see that because the coach really adapted to having no Ja Morant. He drew up some pretty good starting lineups. There's decent depth on the team, and everything like that. So I don't think it has much to do with they're better without Ja, but just that they're decent without Ja and they're able to adapt pretty well. And once again, this is something that I thought of and I brought up and put in my notes. And while I was watching some of Rusty Buckets, he also said, so why does I'm reading out what exactly word for word what I put in my notes. But I put, why does a positive for one thing mean a negative for something else? And what I mean by that is, why does the Kings doing well mean that Ja Morant is the problem? So once again, this has nothing to do with Ja Morant. This has to do with his coaching and the depth on the team. And it's as simple as that. Dillon Brooks, I won't even get into because I've already been recording for over an hour. Dillon Brooks is its own issue. I mean, we can talk about that in other episodes, but Dillon Brooks just needs to shut the fuck up. And I was going to do a loser of the week this week, and I was going to make a big deal about it. But, I mean, I don't even have anything cool to say about it or any, like, cool way to present it. I haven't done loser of the week in a while, but loser of the week this week is Dillon Brooks because, I mean, fuck him. Dude needs to shut his mouth every now and then. I did a poll in my NBA group chat, and I said, which would you rather have, Dillon Brooks this year or Trae Young in 2021? And everybody said Trae Young in 2021 because both of them talked a lot of shit. The big difference is Trae Young was able to back it up. You know, he did the whole bow at Madison Square Garden, but that's because he fucking dominated at Madison Square Garden. Trae Young talked just as much shit, but Trae Young was able to back it up. So, we'll do further predictions for the playoffs and everything else, and then we'll wrap it up because we've been going for about an hour here. There's some other stuff I wanted to get into, but again, we've been recording for an hour, so and I'll talk more about this with CJ or whatever next guest I have on, because I want to get their further predictions for the playoffs. I want to get their opinion on the load management rule. I want to get their opinion on the shift in defense, which is one of the things I had on my notes because Damian Lillard did an interview where he hates the shift in offense as well. My further predictions, Suns versus Nuggets, I could see going either way. the Suns are doing really well, but the Nuggets also have Jokic, who again is an MVP caliber player. Um, so I we'll have to wait and see. The Suns have a tendency to choke as well, though. Um, so we'll see what happens. Kings versus Lakers. Once again, I can see going either way. The Kings don't have that much great defense, so the Lakers, I could see LeBron dropping 40 or whatever on them. But at the same time, the Kings don't really need defense. The whole point is that they're a fully offensive focused team, and they almost scored. There was a game where they almost scored like 180 or something crazy like that, I believe, which was like one of the highest scoring games ever. The Kings put all their eggs into one basket on offense, and the crazy thing is it's working. They're a full offense team, and so we'll just have to see how well they do. But at the same time, the Lakers have a pretty good defense. So it really comes down to, is the Lakers defense better or is the Kings offense better? And we'll just have to wait and see. But one of the things I put on my notes for Kings Warriors, and I forgot to talk about this, is they are relying a big deal on DeAaron Fox, which I think is sort of bottlenecking them a little bit, which could be a hot take, but hear me out. I've talked a lot about how the Kings' success, and again the coaching, Mike Brown, and everything like that. The Kings are playing as a team, and this is one of the things that I commended the Cavs on. One of the things the Spurs is known for. Teamwork really works in basketball. It's a 5v5, not a 3v3 or anything like that. But with them now being in the playoffs, it seems that a lot of the media coverage, at least, is focused on De'Aaron Fox, because obviously he's their superstar and everything like that. He's getting a lot of the attention, and he's doing a lot for them. But I don't want the Kings to focus too much on De'Aaron Fox, because if they do, that's going to be their weakness. That's going to bottleneck their success. And one of the big things that goes towards their success, one of the keys to their success, is that they're able to diversify their plays. They're sort of able to spread the ball around and play team ball, and again get points from anywhere. So if they rely too much on one player, that's going to be an issue. But Celtics versus 76ers, I know I've said like the last 4 matchups I could see going either way, but once again that just goes to show how crazy this playoffs is. It really could go either way. Embiid and Harden could go crazy. The Celtics could go crazy. The Celtics, to me, besides the Bucks, were the team to beat this season. But the Celtics going 6 games against the Hawks sort of gives me, it's sort of sways my opinion a little bit. Because again, I thought the Celtics were going to steamroll through the Hawks. So I might actually give this to the 76ers in 7 games. I'm not going to lie. I feel like either way this will be a 7-game series. But I give the edge to the 76ers. Just because the Celtics, I felt before were the team to beat, but they have not so far met up to my expectations. So we'll see what happens. With the Heat Knicks, I talked a little bit about it before. I think the Heat win this in 5 games, 6 games, probably 5 games, because again the Knicks rely far too heavily on Jalen Brunson, and Jimmy Butler's just been going crazy. So the Knicks don't have that great of defense either. So Jimmy Butler can just do what he did with the Bucks, which is go and drop 50. And I see the Heat taking it easily in like 5 games. So with who I predict to be Finals MVP, I don't know who's going to... I honestly can't predict who's going to be in the Finals because, again, anybody can take it. But let's assume that it's 76ers and the Suns or something. Or 76ers and Nuggets. If it's 76ers and Nuggets, that's going to be fucking interesting. Because then it's whoever wins that will be Finals MVP. So it could be, if it's Nuggets 76ers, say Embiid wins the MVP, the Nuggets win the finals, and Jokic gets finals MVP, or the opposite, where Jokic gets his third MVP, 76ers win, and Embiid gets the finals MVP. That'll be interesting. I just thought about that. That will be interesting if the finals MVP is the opposite as the MVP. That will be exciting. Because that will cause a fucking whirlwind in the NBA community. Because either way, that will be insane. Because either Embiid is gonna win MVP, and then Jokic gets Finals MVP, and everybody's like, "See, Jokic should have won his third MVP." Or the opposite happens, where Jokic gets MVP, Embiid gets Finals MVP, and everybody is like, "See, Embiid should have been MVP the last 3 years." Oh, that's gonna be that's gonna be crazy. If it somehow ends up being the Nuggets 76ers, but if it is Nuggets 76ers, and either Embiid or Jokic wins MVP, I want the opposite team to win, whoever it is. I don't care, because I want to see that now. But if the 76ers go, then it's going to be Embiid. If the Nuggets go, it's going to be Jokic. If the Suns go, it's either going to be Chris Paul or KD, because KD, he has an argument for Finals MVP. He's been in MVP arguments for the past couple of years, but I honestly think it'll be Chris Paul, just because Chris Paul's been waiting so long for a ring that they're gonna give him Finals MVP just for the sake that he's finally won a championship. If it's the Celtics, it'll probably be Tatum. Those are really the only teams that I see winning the championship, but. Once again, there's a lot more that we can talk about, guys. I think that's all I have for the rest of this. I was covering up my chat, but I just saw my girlfriend is once again goofing off in the chat. But that's all I have for this episode, guys. Once again, I'll talk more about the rest of this stuff whenever I have a guest on, and I'll also bounce some of these points off of them. But I think this is a pretty decent episode. So let me know what you guys think, because this should be the return of NBN, hopefully. So I will see you guys in the next one, and peace out. Nathan Burnett, episode 46.
This is not okay. This needs to stop now.